We have all seen the freakish and unnatural chemtrail patterns in the skies above major cities and regional centres. While the mainstream media attempts to convince the public that there's nothing to see here, these freakish geometric chemtrails do not fit into any natural cloud pattern, and they have only begun appearing in recent decades. What are they spraying into the sky? Who's doing it? Why are they doing it? And what's their motives? Most importantly, what can we the people do to put an end to this? According to commercial pilots who've been investigating the phenomenon, the answers to these questions are dark and disturbing, and the paper trail exposes the depopulation agenda of the global elite. Before we dive in, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, join the People's Voice Locals community to join our incredible team, and check out the brand new free speech forum at community.thepeoplesvoice.tv. Anybody who's been paying attention to the world around them in recent times has noticed that our skies are changing. The sun, once a large orange ball of fire, now appears whiter and smaller. Where clouds once erupted in beautiful natural shapes, including cirrus, cumulus, and nimbus formations, they now appear grid-like, resembling the bars of a giant prison planet. Brave truth-tellers, unafraid of the wrath of the mainstream media and other elite gatekeepers, have been speaking about the phenomenon for years. Here is Prince in 2009, speaking about Dick Gregory and social engineering from the skies.
He said something that really hit home about this phenomena of chemtrails. And, you know, when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time. And so, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And the next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing, and you didn't know why. Okay, and you really didn't know why. Everybody was fighting.
Prince was always fearless and ahead of his time. In recent years, pilots and aviation industry professionals, including air traffic controllers, have been coming forward to blow the whistle on the unnatural and dangerous chemtrail phenomenon.
The contrails, not the chemical, the contrails occur because of cold air, minus 30. It takes a high altitude, around 30,000 feet plus. There's carbon dioxide and water vapor in that exhaust. That turns to ice crystals, and that's what you see, the white stream behind it. Those white crystals of ice warm up, dissolve, and the smoke goes away. And it never lasts more than a minute. What we're seeing now, and I first could not believe it, and I the skies, and these are not normal. They're not natural. There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal. It's got to be some outside influence doing that. Thank you.
I'm here to give you testimony that chemtrails, they're not contrails, are indeed real. They're spraying almost every day. I watch the clouds and watch the spraying program going on. I want to tell you that we're in very great danger from the pollution that's coming down over us. And we've been led astray by the military-industrial complex, and they're responsible for the cloud's creation and weather manipulation programs. They're dark operations. That's why they're not out in the media.
I look around and I see people are starting to look up and see this. Many times I've spoken about chemtrails, and I get this blank look on my face. What are you talking about? I'm saying, look up. As a pilot, before I fly, I look up. And so, boy, they're really out there working.
Look up at the sun and you see a white haze. That is aluminum floating in the air right now. And
He's not wrong about the aluminium, but what else is in the chemtrails? Richard Vobes interviewed 2 commercial pilots last week who've been conducting in-depth research into chemtrails after becoming disturbed by what was happening in their industry. To protect their anonymity, the 2 pilots had their voices digitized for the interview.
Yes, I can answer that, Richard. So what they're spraying, all around Europe, we have had tests done from the dust on your car, from the dust on roofs, and I've noticed the chemtrails personally for about the last 10 years. So they have been tested. if you go onto a website that I'll give you initially, it is geoengineeringwatch.org. That's geoengineeringwatch.org. A lot of confirming information can also be found on that website. So we have had many samples tested from various laboratories where they have mass spectrometers, and the main constituents are barium, strontium, aluminium oxide. The first two are carcinogenic. Aluminium oxide promotes Alzheimer's disease, amongst other things. And there are various microplastics, up to 2% uranium, and graphene oxide, which we all know about. These tend to be the basic elements in what they're spraying. The justification for it, they say, and we're talking the New World Order, globalists, etc., etc., is to dim the sun, because it's climate change or whatever they want to call it next week, is to dim the sun and to insidiously poison everything. It is the depopulation program. It all leads back to that. It leads back to the World Health Organization. It leads back to the WEF, the WEF at Davos, and the main players who are sponsoring this are the Bill Gates Foundation and various others. But this is in their Agenda 2030. Is it in the Agenda 2021? It's well documented in the John Hopkins University agendas. They are all publicly available. So it essentially does two things: to block out the sun and to insidiously poison everything.
The elite agenda to block the sun has taken a serious turn this year, with Bill Gates and George Soros pumping tens of millions of dollars into schemes to spray aerosols into the atmosphere to shield the Earth from the life-giving rays of the sun. Meanwhile, thanks to extreme weather events in Dubai, the mainstream media was forced to admit that governments do engage in weather modification in the form of cloud seeding. According to the pilots, the chemtrail agenda is part of this plot to destroy life on Earth by blocking the sun. And farms in particular are already experiencing the negative effects of the elite's anti-life agenda.
And yes, it's the animals are eating the grass. It's in the grass. We've been speaking to a lot of farmers. As I say, I'm from Belgium, and a lot of the farmers there are reporting all sorts of problems with animals, particularly newborn animals such as lambs. And yes, it's starting to affect everything, and it is insidious. And of course, your doctor, when you have something wrong, they have no idea where it's from.
While the sources of the funding for the chemtrail agenda can be sourced back to the usual suspects, including the Gates and Soros foundations and their colleagues at the WEF, who are the people who fly the planes and spray the toxic chemtrails on densely populated urban centres? And how much do these people know about what they're doing? The answers might surprise you. Today's sponsor is pillsforever.com. If you think Big Pharma have your best interests at heart, think again. Under Biden, the price of medicine in America has skyrocketed, and there are certain medicines Big Pharma don't want you to know about. That's why I've partnered with pillsforever.com. All of their FDA-approved medicines are the cheapest you'll find anywhere. More importantly, you can order medicines that Big Pharma don't want you to have, such as ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and fenbendazole. Speaking of fenbendazole, not only does it get rid of parasites that live inside your body, there have been studies that show fenbendazole can help with cancer. Listen to this testimony of Joe Tippins, a cancer survivor, thanks to fenbendazole.
2 years ago, Joe Tippins says he was told to go home, call hospice, and say his goodbyes. The doctors were unanimous. He was going to die of small cell lung cancer.
Once that kind of cancer goes that far afield, the odds of survival are less than 1%, and the median life expectancy is 3 months.
Tippins says he got a tip, not from a pharmacist, but a veterinarian. And in his desperation, he turned from people medicine to dog medicine, specifically fenbendazole.
My insurance company spent $1.2 million on me with traditional means before I switched to a $5 a week medicine that actually saved me.
Get 15% off using coupon code People's Voice at the checkouts. Please click the link below this video or call 256-664-4170 to take advantage of this fantastic offer. Chemtrails are not a conspiracy theory. They are a conspiracy fact. The Spanish government ordered the military to quietly spray lethal chemtrails on its citizens with UN authorization under the cover of the state of emergency for the management of the health crisis situation caused by COVID-19. The chemtrail program, which involves the spraying of biocides on the population, was authorized by royal decree and was quietly acknowledged by the on April the 16th, 2020, just 1 month after the World Health Organization announced that COVID-19 was a pandemic. While we know that governments are spraying deadly chemicals on their populations, we still know very little about the logistics of the clandestine and highly illegal program.
The initial culprits were freighter aircraft that have been converted. We've done a lot of research into this in Europe, and we're finding there's a company who supply freighter aircraft called ASL. They have actually supplied some of these companies, some of these aircraft, leased some of these aircraft to various companies around Europe, freighter companies who then apply for the conversions, which are fairly simple to do. In the UK, there's a couple of companies that we've also been keeping an eye on. They very simply have either a roll-on, roll-off system, which is containerized like a freighter aircraft would normally have. So it's a pallet with a pump, wiring, a container with the chemicals in. They get loaded onto the aircraft, they get slotted into position, an engineer will connect them all up, and he'll get airborne. The other aircraft have permanent tanks already fitted, and again, they're deliberately and willfully fitted. So the CAA in each country have approved these systems, so the CAA know about what they're doing. We've also looked into the company's air operators' certificates, and some of these companies have more than one. And some of them, for instance, are allowed to spray their oil spill response. Their legitimacy is that they can spray detergents low level over the sea onto an oil slick. But in actual fact, when you think, well, how many oil slicks were there around Europe or around the world in the last 20 years, it's been minimal. So that raised my suspicion. That's how I got onto this many years ago. The AOC also says that some of these operators can spray pesticides over wooded areas. And clearly that's in violation of the AOC because most cities don't have wooded areas. So yeah, it's been going on for quite some time. It's just that we're now starting to notice.
As the pilots explained, chemtrail operations involve both military and civilian sectors, and the whole enterprise is tightly controlled to remain completely inaccessible to the public.
Both military and civil operators actually sit side by side in one control room. What happens is a flight plan would be filed. They would then have the if you like, the prior knowledge of the routes that these aircraft are going to take, altitude, speed, direction, etc. And what we're finding, and this is very important for your viewers to understand, many people use the flight tracking apps, in particular Flight Radar 24. There are others out there, but it's been proven that these do not deliberately, they are being blocked from, the customers being blocked from seeing the aircraft flying. That's why you can look out in the sky and physically see, you know, the big grid patterns building as these planes are flying non-commercial routes. They're not flying the normal patterns that anybody can get hold of an aviation route chart and have a look at where they should be. They're not following these flight paths, but they're being controlled by both military. What they're doing is they obviously can see the aircraft for safety reasons and to keep them, you know, get them through. But the problem is that the apps won't let Joe Public see them. So that's why you'll see one with a trail, maybe 3 or 4, and they tend to come through in sort of half a dozen, like a squadron at a time, coming through in waves, building these patterns, particularly in front of the sun. The more you witness this, you'll realise that's their aim with what they call the solar radiation management. And then within a few minutes to a few hours, you'll see the sky just cloud over. And if you don't get the rain, you're lucky. But that's why we're suffering with this lack of vitamin D, amongst other things.
Do the pilots and aviation professionals know what they're doing? What kind of person could possibly spray these deadly chemicals over densely populated urban centres?
The answer is, when they started out on this, they saw it as a business opportunity. Let's not ask too many questions. In short answer to that question, I'd say yes, they fully realise what they're doing. Anybody, once you've found out the constituent parts of what you're spraying, anybody can then look it up. You can Google it if you have to, and you can find out what the net effect of these chemicals will have on mankind, human life, plant life, and so on. The pilots, the other tangential to that question, I would say the other question I get asked is, do the pilots know what they're doing? Yes, they do, 100%. If you have dangerous goods on board, which these chemicals will be classed as dangerous goods, the captain has to have something called a NOTOC, which is a notice to captain. And that will list where the dangerous goods are. This is very common with aircraft. So a freight aircraft can have 1,000 different manufactured goods on, but then he may be taking radioisotopes for an X-ray machine. Now that's dangerous goods. They have to be handled and they have to be packaged to a minimum requirement, and there may be certain parts of the aircraft that is not allowed in, and so on. So if the idea behind this is if an aircraft has to divert due to an emergency, then the captain runs off the aircraft with the NOTOC and he says to the fire chief, yes, I have radioisotopes on board and they're in that section of the aircraft. That's what it's all about. They will know. They will know. Plus the fact, to take that a little further, we found out that in Europe, about 2/3 of the chemicals come from America, and about 1/3 of the chemicals India. And there are various companies bringing them in. The military, we also believe, are bringing them in. As I said before, I'm from Belgium, and there's a base there, Zoetermeer, and they've been operating, the military have been spraying for quite some time. In fact, the military have been spraying a lot longer than the civil operators. Civil operators have probably been in the last 20 years, and they've upped it in the last 4 to 5. But the military before that, yeah, the pilots know what they're spraying.
Now that more pilots and aviation industry professionals are coming forward to expose the agenda, to block the sun and slowly poison everything on Earth, what can we the people do to put a stop to this?
Number one, now you know about it, please be more attentive. We know that the aircraft that are physically spraying over the land are between 10 and 15,000 feet. They tend to fly quite slowly, and they're not on your flight radar apps. So if you have anybody with a good camera or a good camera phone, or indeed a telephoto lens, somebody who's a photographer, photographs of these aircraft with location, time, date, distance, the direction that they're flying. When they go to the airports, anything unusual equipment. For instance, some of these freighters are out of place. The key thing is somebody must know somebody who works at an airport. That's really key. And what we're going to do is we're just asking anybody that works at an airport, it's your next door neighbour, it's your friend down the road. Ask them. Now there's a little trick that they can do. As I say, don't tell me, just write it down. So if they get a registration of an aircraft or something like this, it's just to be more attentive. The other thing we would say is oversee. See, they're spraying the sea as well. We know this. They tend to drop down to around about 5,000 feet. And we've noticed various places, particularly the Pacific Ocean. You can actually see the chemtrails with some of the live satellite feeds that you can get. We also know that they've been spraying over the stretch of water between, I think it's Cornwall and Devon, I think it is, and the South Wales coast at 5,000 feet. So fishermen, farmers, everybody, yes, just pay more attention. Photographs, and there's plenty of websites out there now that you can actually go and post these on.
These are critical times, and here at The People's Voice, we are determined to expose the elite and hold them to account before they can fully implement their devastating agenda. Join us in our mission to wake up the masses by subscribing to the channel and joining The People's Voice Locals community to join our amazing team. I hope you're there. Today's video is brought to you by IPv6ers. Are you a content creator who wants to publish information online without Big Brother spying and censoring your every move? IPv6ers is set to revolutionize the way information is disseminated on the internet by eliminating the need for big tech companies to provide unreliable, overpriced services such as self-hosting, email and data management. IPv6ers enables an easy and accessible way for you to host your own web and email server with direct end-to-end connections and enhanced security. This means no snooping from Big Brother and no interference from the technocratic elite. If Hillary Clinton can get away with running her own server, why shouldn't you? Go to thepeoplesvoice.tv/IPv6 to sign up, or click the link below this video to take back control of the internet and win the info wars against the globalists. If you like our content, help support our sponsor IPv6ers and go to thepeoplesvoice.tv/IPv6 today. Thank you IPv6ers for making this video possible.